Hello students, welcome to another lesson in socio-economic analysis of communities. In this, let us try to understand the electoral system in India and the Panchayat Raj system in India. Also, comprehend the changes in production and consumption patterns in India. In this, we have 4 modules. To start with, module 1, the electoral system in India. Elections enable every adult citizen of the country to participate in the process of government formation. These elections are held on the basis of universal adult franchise, which means all Indians of 18 years of age and above have the right to vote irrespective of their caste, color, religion, sex or place of birth. Elections are conducted according to the constitutional provisions supplemented by laws made by the Parliament. The Constitution of India provides for an Election Commission of India, which is responsible for superintendence, direction and control of all elections. These elections determine the composition of the government, the membership of the 2 houses of the Parliament, the state and union territory legislative assemblies, and the presidency and vice presidency. Elections are also held for local bodies such as municipalities, municipal corporation and Panchayat Raj institutions. The Constitution puts a limit on the size of the Lok Sabha of 550 elected members, apart from 2 members who can be nominated by the President to represent the Anglo-Indian community. There are also provisions to ensure the representation of scheduled castes and scheduled tribes, with reserved constituencies where only candidates from these communities can stand for election. The major defects which come in the path of electoral system in India are money power, muscle power, criminalization of politics, poll violence, booth capturing, communalism, casteism, non-serious and independent candidates. Distribution of power mode of decision making. The decision making power in different countries is of 4 types. First, democratic decision making. It is a system of government by the whole population or all the eligible members of the state, typically through elected representatives, in which everyone is treated equally and has equal rights. It is a form of government in which people choose leaders by voting. There are pre-existing rules and procedures that allow for a mainstream resolution to any issue. Also, there is not one person responsible for making a decision, rather the decision is made by a group of people. Therefore, democratic decision making is dependent on a group instead of one leader. Second is dictatorial decision making. Dictatorial decision making processes are the extreme case of vested interests in which one person or small group of people have the power to govern an entire country or region, making decisions which favor themselves and their cohorts over the interests and needs of the society as a whole. This type of decision making will be unrealistic in demands, uses excessive discipline and punishment, does not allow others to question decisions or authority. While this has been the normal form of decision making in much of the world for thousands of years, more and more societies worldwide are rejecting this approach and trying to transform their governments into more democratic systems. The transition is difficult, however, and dictatorial processes tend to persist in much of the world. They are especially powerful because of many dictators' willingness to use violent forces to keep their people in line. Third is decentralized decision making. It is a process where the decision making authority is distributed throughout a larger group. It also connotes a higher authority given to lower level functionaries, executives and workers. This can be in any organization of any size, from a governmental authority to a corporation. Fourth is bureaucratic decision making. A government in which the supreme power is vested in some people and exercised by them directly or indirectly through a system of representation, usually involving periodically held free elections. Government is characterized by specialization of functions, adherence to fixed rules and a hierarchy of authority. Panchayats as institutional vehicles for development have been part of the Indian system for ages. In ancient times, Panchayati Raj system prevailed during the Chola period. In fact, Rippon's resolution of 1881 and 1882 can be taken to be the origin of modern local government in India. It was seen as Gram Swaraj by Mahatma Gandhi. Balwant Rai Mehta Committee in 1957 recommended a three-tier system of Panchayati Raj from village to the district level. Gram Panchayat at the village level, Panchayat Samiti at the block level and Zillaparishad at the district level. To review the working of the Panchayat Raj institutions, Ashok Mehta Committee recommended certain changes. At last, government enacted the 73rd constitutional amendment, which was passed by Parliament on 23rd December 1992 and became effective on 24th April 1993. The Act has given a practical shape to Article 40 of the Constitution and gives a constitutional status to Panchayati Raj institutions. The constitutional amendment ensures a three-tier structure at the district, block and village levels. An election commission to hold elections periodically. The main features of the Act are a three-tier system of Panchayat Raj for all the states having population of over 20 lakh. Second, Panchayat elections regularly for every 5 years. Third, reservation of seats for scheduled castes, scheduled tribes and women, not less than 1/3 of seats. Fourth, appointment of State Finance Commission to make recommendations with regard to the financial powers of the Panchayats. And fifth, constitution of district planning committees to prepare development plans for the district as a whole. As per the Constitution, that is 73rd Amendment Act, the Panchayat Raj institutions have been endowed with such powers and authority as may be necessary to function as institutions of self-government and contains provisions of devolution of powers and responsibilities at the appropriate level with reference to the preparation and implementation of plans for economic development and social justice entrusted to them. Now, let us see the organizational structure of Panchayat Raj, that is the three-tier system of democratic decentralization. At state level, the institution is Commissionerate of Panchayat Raj, the elected representative is Minister for Panchayat Raj and the government representative is Commissioner of Panchayat Raj. At district level, the institution is Zillaparishad, the elected representative is Chairman and the government representative is District Collector, Chief Executive Officer and District Panchayat Officer. At Mandal level, the institution is Mandal Praja Parishad, elected representative is Mandal Praja Parishad President and Mandal Praja Parishad members and the government representative is Mandal Parishad Development Officer. And At village level, the institution is Gram Panchayat and the elected representative is Sarpanch, Upasarpanch and ward members, and the government representative is village secretary. Next, let us see the structure of Panchayat Raj. At district level, that is the Zilla Parishad, district collector and secretary. At block level, Panchayat Samiti, extension officers and BDO. At village level, village Panchayat, that is Gram Sevak. Now, let us see the functional structure of Panchayat institutions at various levels. At Zilla Parishad meeting and district level committee meetings are held. At Mandal Praja Parishad meetings and Mandal level committee meetings are held. And at Gram Panchayat, Gram Sabha, that is the people needs are discussed. Now, let us see the functions of Panchayat Raj institutions. Gram Panchayat, that is at village level. First, preparation of annual plans. Second, preparation of annual budget. Third, mobilizing relief for natural calamities. Fourth, removal of encroachment on public properties. Fifth, organizing voluntary labor and contribution for community works. Sixth, maintenance of statistics of villages. Seventh, functions entrusted by Panchayat Samiti, Zilla Panchayat, state or central government. Eighth, general administrative functions, village defense information and publicity constitution of Nyaya Panchayats. 9. Protection and repair of buildings and properties. 10. Destruction of stray animals. Next level, Mandal Praja Parishad, that is Mandal level. First, general administrative functions and maintenance of Mandal. Second, implementations of Mandal Parishad resolutions. Third, supervision of Gram Panchayat. Fourth, convening the meetings of Mandal Parishad. Fifth, undertaking developmental and social activities. Next, Zillaparishad, that is district level. First, examination and approval of budget. Second, distribution of funds among the mandals. Third, coordination and consolidation of plans. Fourth, secure execution of funds. Fifth, general supervision of mandal activities. Sixth, exercise and perform powers and functions of the district board, levy and tax fees. Seventh, advise government on planning, allocation and execution of works and activities to local PRIs. The world currently produces enough food for its citizens according to FAO 2011. However, food demand is only met in the aggregate as there are profound disparities in access to food across geographic regions and across the spectrum of incomes at both the household and country levels. Despite considerable efforts to combat global hunger, 925 million people were undernourished in 2010, while the number of overweight and obese people across the developed and developing worlds rose to 1.5 billion in 2008 according to FAO 2012. The rise of this extreme discrepancy provides new and unique challenges to households and governments as they strive to provide sustainable dietary sustenance to citizens according to WHO 2011. Food and Agriculture Organization estimates that 70% more food must be available by 2050 from a severely depleted natural resource base to ensure food security needs. As of 2011, India had a large and diverse agriculture sector, accounting on an average for about 16% of GDP and 10% of export earnings. India is among the top 3 global producers of many crops, including wheat, rice, pulses, cotton, peanuts, fruits and vegetables. Worldwide, as of 2011, India had the largest herds of buffalo and cattle. It is the largest producer of milk and has one of the largest and fastest growing poultry industries. Other recent studies claim India can easily feed its growing population plus produce wheat and rice for global exports if it can reduce food staple spoilage, improve its infrastructure and raise its farm productivity to those achieved by other developing countries such as Brazil and China. India has shown a steady average nationwide annual increase in the kilograms produced per hectare for some agriculture items over the last 60 years. These gains have come mainly from India's green revolution, improving road and power generation, infrastructure, knowledge of gains and reforms. Crop yields vary significantly between Indian states. Some states produce 2 to 3 times more grains per acre than others. Crop yields for some farms in India are within 90% of the best achieved yields by farms in developed countries such as United States. No single state of India is best in every crop. Tamil Nadu achieved highest yields in rice and sugarcane, Haryana in wheat and coarse grains, Karnataka in cotton, Bihar in pulses, while other states do well in horticulture, aquaculture, flower and fruit plantations. These differences in agricultural productivity are due to disparity in local infrastructure, soil quality, climate, local resources, farmers' knowledge and innovations. Now, let us see the causes for low productivity in India. The low productivity in India is a result of certain factors. That is, the average size of land holdings is very small, that is less than 2 hectares, and is subject to fragmentation due to land ceiling acts and in some cases family disputes. Such small holdings are often overmanned, resulting in disguised unemployment and low productivity of labor. Adoption of modern agricultural practices and use of technology is inadequate, hampered by ignorance of such practices, high costs and impracticality in the case of small land holdings. According to the World Bank, India's large agricultural subsidies are hampering productivity. Overregulation of agriculture has increased costs, price risk and uncertainty. Government intervenes in labor, land and credit markets. India has inadequate infrastructure and services. The World Bank also says that the allocation of water is inefficient, unsustainable and inequitable. The irrigation infrastructure is deteriorating. The overuse of water is being covered by overpumping aquifers, but as these are failing by 1 foot of groundwater each year, this is a limited resource. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change released a report saying that food security may be a big problem in the region post 2030. Illiteracy, general socio-economic backwardness, slow progress in implementing land reforms and inadequate or inefficient finance and marketing services for farm produce. Next is inconsistent government policy. Agriculture subsidies and taxes are often changed without notice for short term political ends. Next, irrigation facilities are inadequate as revealed by the fact that only 52.6% of the land was irrigated in 2003 to 2004, which resulted farmers still being dependent on rainfall, specifically the monsoon season. A good monsoon season results in a robust growth for the economy, while a poor monsoon leads to a sluggish growth. Farm credit is regulated by NABARD, which is the statutory apex agent for rural development in the subcontinent. At the same time, overpumping made possible by subsidized electric power is leading to an alarming drop in aquifer levels. A third of all food that is produced rots due to inefficient supply chains. It is also important to note that there is a significant difference between the amount of food produced at the farm level and the amount of food actually consumed. The FAO estimates that global food loss and waste is approximately 1.3 billion tons annually, or roughly one third of all food produced for human consumption. Food loss and waste occurs at points throughout the food supply chain, from the field through to household level, and occurs across the global socio-economic spectrum. Now, let us see the measures to be taken to improve production patterns. The measures to be taken to improve production patterns which favors sustainable development are: reduce consumption of energy and non-renewable resources, and on the other hand limit pollution and particularly the production of environmentally harmful waste. Adopting harmonious consumption patterns which could be satisfied by natural resources on a sustainable basis. Encouraging consumers to opt for non-polluting, recyclable products. Accordingly, a broad range of goods, services and equipment like biodegradable items have to be designed on the basis of environmental considerations. Community organizations and the media can play an increasingly important role in encouraging consumers to adopt environmentally sound lifestyles. Communities have to be encouraged to practice organic farming, water harvesting, water conservation, etc. Some governments have already set an example by applying instruments for intervention in such fields as regulation, incentives and disincentives, information and education, and the development and dissemination of environmentally sound technologies. Economic growth brings about changes in the production, processing, distribution, marketing and consumption of food. India's faster economic growth over 1990s has raised per capita income and has significantly impacted its food consumption patterns by causing a change in the structure of food consumption patterns. Per capita income and food consumption both are the indicators of human development. For food consumption is a better indicator of human welfare. Consumption expenditure on different food and non-food items are generally used as the main yardstick for measuring standard of living in developing nation. Food consumption patterns and trends have a direct and significant influence in the short and longer terms on food production patterns and overall food security. According to some studies, the proportion of expenditure on food items over all income groups has declined by about 10 percentage points in the rural areas and by about 16 percentage points in the urban areas between 1987 to 88 and 2009 to 2010. The consumption of cereals, which still form the largest components of household consumption, has significantly declined since 1987 to 88 from 26.3 percentage to 15.6 percentage in rural area and from 15 percentage to 9% in urban area of India. The share of most of the food item groups in total consumption expenditure was higher in rural India than in urban India, fruits and processed food being exceptions. However, the income induced diversification has resulted in consumers moving away from inferior cereals such as jawar and bajra to superior grains such as wheat and rice, and more recently from cereals to high value food products such as milk, egg, meat, fruits and vegetables. The change is occurring both among rural and urban households. Other factors contributing to the change in the consumption pattern is the increasing urbanization. During the most recent decade, globalization has also played an important role in the transformation of food consumption patterns of Indian households. There has been a significant increase in imports of fresh fruits such as apple, dry fruits such as almonds and processed food products following removal of trade restrictions. While an increase in the consumption of milk, animal protein, fruits and vegetables could result in reduced incidence of malnutrition and increased consumption of highly calorific and fatty food that could lead to increased incidence, obesity and of diet related diseases like diabetes, coronary heart disease. In coming years, with rising per capita income and urbanization, India's demand for various superior food products will continue to increase, necessitating a possible change in the food production system and agriculture trade. Some important facts about food consumption patterns are: these lifestyles and consumption patterns are largely due to the development model of the industrialized world. Consumption patterns reflect the changes taking place in the economic status of the households. For lower income households, the emphasis is on essentials such as food items, but as their disposable income grows, spending on durables, health, education and investment related products come into play. For the bottom 10% households, necessities form an overwhelming share of their consumption, as these households spend a considerably large proportion of their total expenditure on food and clothing. Currently, the bottom 10% households spend 63% of total consumption expenditure on necessities. In contrast, for the top 10% households, discretionary spending outpaced necessities. Among food components, the pace of growth declined, especially on essentials such as cereals, edible oil, fruits and vegetables. On the other hand, the segments that have experienced some of the highest increases in growth in the last decade as compared to a decade earlier are apparel, footwear and healthcare. And the last fact is that there is also a lot of difference in consumption patterns between urban and rural societies. Well, any questions?
Ma'am, I have a question. What does the government do when there is low productivity in India?
Whenever there is low productivity in food, firstly they will try to apply the available measures to improve the food production. If still the problem persists, then they try to import. Before that, they estimate the consumption rate, production rate and the available food stock. Then they negotiate with that particular food producing country and make the final decision to import. Any more questions? Well then, this is the end of another lesson in socio-economic analysis of communities. Thank you.